After mysteriously ending in 2015, Super Sentai SH Figuarts have returned in 2022 with SH Figuarts Zenkaiger. But are they going to be here to stay, and what can we expect from the revival? Let's look at the history and break it down.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and today we're talking about the history of the Super Sentai SH Figuarts to try to analyze and assess if the current return of Figuarts is actually going to go anywhere. Because I think that looking at history is how we learn for our futures. So here's a primer on SH Figuarts, specifically about Sentai, but in general, SH Figuarts is Bandai's high-end collector's line. That's sort of changed a lot of the collector markets in a lot of ways. They introduced a lot of different articulation styles and hand options and crazy stuff like that. And it started in 2008 with Kamen Rider. They did a run for Kamen Rider the Next, and it spiraled out of control from there. Pretty much where we expect SH Figuarts or Kamen Rider every time a new season premieres. And there's a lot of issues with the Kamen Rider lineup, particularly the P Bandai exclusives are a good example, and that's for another video at a different time. The lineup of SH Figuarts has expanded beyond tokusatsu, so while it included Sentai Figuarts in 2011 to 2015, and it included Ultraman Figuarts in 2016 to present, there was other brands that came into Figuarts that sort of took over the lineup. Specifically, Dragon Ball has been a big one, anime figures have been another, Star Wars has done it, MCU stuff. There's been a lot of SH Figuarts that have been produced, and it's sort of gotten the line farther from its tokusatsu roots to where it feels like Kamen Rider, which started it, is not a high priority, considering there's like 2 or 3 retail release Kamen Riders and then like 25 P Bandai exclusives. It's a little bit uneven. But SH Figuarts for Super Sentai have actually had an interesting history because they not only were released in Japan as Super Sentai, but in America as Power Rangers. So what I thought would be kind of fun is if we go over the brief history of the line, and I do actually mean there's not that many Sentai Figuarts. We can do a rundown of all of them in this video and it not be like an hour long. So I figured, why not? We'll go year by year, and I'll sort of put in theories as to why each year was successful or not successful. So let's begin. So we start our history at 2011. This was kind of a big year for Sentai. It was the 35th anniversary. Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger was on air and doing great business with Ranger Keys, and it just seemed like a natural fit. Kamen Rider had been doing Figuarts for a few years. It was time for Sentai to join the lineup. And it started with Shinken Red from Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. Shinkenger was still popular a couple years later, so this was a very smart choice to begin with. And yeah, it was pretty good out the gate, though it definitely seemed like the Sentai Figuarts were a bit lacking in sort of their proportions and detail compared to the Kamen Rider ones due to the skin-tight bodysuits as opposed to the more armored looks that could hide some of the joints better. But that's where it began, and it continued. After Shinken Red, we saw the release of Shinken Gold. Shinken Blue and Shinken Green were P Bandai exclusives, so right off the bat, people who weren't Red or 6th were exclusive, which is kind of one of the problems, which we'll continue to talk about. After that, we saw the release of the Princess Shinken Red, or the female Shinken Red. Gokai Red came on the scene in quite a surprise, because I remember Gokai Red wasn't even announced prior to pre-orders going up. He just appeared, and it was like, oh, hey, Gokai Red. And he actually came with a first release bonus of his steering wheel from the Gokai Galleon cockpit. Continuing from there, Shinken Yellow and Shinken Pink came out at P Bandai. Gokai Blue, Gokai Green rounded out the year, with Gokai Yellow being P Bandai. So while 3 of the Gokaigers were retail here, 1 of them was Premium Bandai, and that was unfortunate because it definitely seemed like, oh hey, you're a girl? Go to P Bandai, no one wants you. And that would sort of break up a lot of the teams, which became a major issue for the lineup because, first of all, there's a giant hurdle with the Figuarts, and we can see it in just the first year. It's that the main team, if the figures are, what were they back then? 45 bucks, because they're like close to 60 now. When they're 45 bucks a figure, you're spending a lot of money to complete a team. And then on top of that, they made members who they didn't think were as popular Premium Bandai exclusives, which works for their Kamen Rider lineup because they typically put alternate forms or secondary riders to P Bandai, more so now than they did back then, but they essentially made the less essential stuff Premium Bandai. So in a way, it was kind of telling you blue, green, pink, yellow, those colors are less essential. And I think that sort of threw off the fan base a bit. But that being said, the concept and the idea for SH Figuarts for Sentai was definitely in a big swing, and that picked up more in 2012. 2012 began with Gokai Silver releasing at retail, but missing his cockpit piece. The other Gokaigers had it, including the P Bandai Gokai Yellow, and he was missing his. Following up that same month was the P Bandai release of Gokai Pink. Super Shinken Red was a retail release, which was actually kind of nice for an alternate form. Followed up with Gosei Knight, who is currently the only Tensou Sentai Goseiger SH Figuart, and he was P Bandai as well. Moving further back in time, as opposed to just what was the current seasons, they produced Deca Red from Tokusou Sentai Deca Ranger, because at this time Hikonen Sentai Akiba Ranger was on screen, and this was a show that was sort of a parody of Super Sentai that played on the Super Sentai fandom and a lot of the tropes, and this was really popular with the adult fans as it was an adult-aimed Sentai show that was sort of for those fans that had been fans for a long time. What better place than a Figuarts action figure line where the figures are $45 to $50 a piece. Akiba Ranger got a massive lineup in the form of SH Figuarts, starting of course with Akiba Red, which then led to Akiba Blue and Akiba Yellow following behind. And these were essentially the only figures we really got of the Akiba Rangers at the time of the show's airing, and I think that's what made them sort of special. It was like, oh hey, Figuarts is for the adult fans. Alongside, between those, there was more Shinkenger P Bandai releases, including Fuwa Juzo, which would be the first villain in the line, and Hyper Shinken Red, going alongside the Akiba Rangers, featuring the past Sentai heroes in episodes. They released Red Hawk from Chojin Sentai Jetman. Boken Red followed up, and then of course, Tokume Sentai Go Busters was also airing at the time, so Red Buster came out at retail that fall. Unfortunately, just like what had happened with Shinkenger, Deca Blue was a premium Bandai exclusive, Black Condor was a premium Bandai exclusive, and Cheetah Nick, the Buddy Roid for Red Buster, also a premium Bandai exclusive. So just back-to-back P Bandai stuff. What was surprisingly at retail was the Atasha Robo from Akiba Ranger, which was also a Chogokin release, which was very expensive, but it did convert from their weird little car into their weird little robot, and the Figuarts could ride inside, which made it kind of the first, like, Figuarts mecha. Going forward, we had Yellow Buster and Usada Lettuce as a 2-pack, again P Bandai, Basco Tajalokia and Sally, which was another Gokaiger villain, P Bandai, Deca Green, P Bandai, Gokai Christmas, Toei Hero Net exclusive. It was an easy repaint, I guess. And that wrapped up 2012. So you can start to see where part of the problem is that we're seeing more P Bandai than retail. And so I think for a lot of Sentai figure art collectors, they were just picking up what was at retail, which was typically just the Reds and the 6th. 2013 is where I feel like the whole thing was starting to fall apart. First up, Blue Buster from Go Busters, which was retail, which means of the main 3 Go Busters, you could get 2 at retail and 1 at P Bandai. Of course, Gorisaki Banana, his buddy Roid, was P Bandai. And unfortunately, they would never release Beat or Stag Buster. So that team has been incomplete since 2013. And that's another problem we'll get into. The drones from Akiba Ranger, P Bandai. Deca Yellow and Deca Pink from Deca Ranger, P Bandai. Super Akiba Red from Akiba Ranger Season 2, retail. Dragon Ranger and Tyranno Ranger, both retail, and both of these contain special parts to make them the powerful Rangers from their alternate world in Akiba Ranger Season 2. Another P Bandai release, another Gokaiger villain, Walls Gill. Then we had Akiba Ranger Season 2 versions of Akiba Blue and Akiba Yellow. Delu Knight, a villain from Akiba Ranger, P Bandai. A Ryu Ranger figure art from Dai Ranger, which was retail. Then an interesting thing happened, because it seemed like while we had been getting single release, here's one Ranger at a time, P Bandai decided, hey, let's pump up the volume here, and Boken Black and Boken Blue was released in a 2-pack. Unfortunately, Yellow, Pink, and Boken Silver would never see release, which is another problem. Hurricane Red was a retail release. Kiba Ranger from Dai Ranger, released at P Bandai. No Shishi, no Ho-Oh, no Kilin, and oh my god, no Tenma Ranger. I did that off memory, I didn't look that up. It's been a minute since I watched Dai Ranger. Anyways, no more Dai Rangers past the Red and the 6, and the 6 was P Bandai. Going into another retail release, Kyoryu Red from the recently started Juden Sentai Kyoryuger. Terra Ranger from Do Ranger was made, premium Bandai. Cho Akiba Red Super, P Bandai. Armored Tyranno Ranger, P Bandai. The Go Ranger set containing both Kuwaga Ranger and Kabuto Ranger, P Bandai. And then we move into 2014. Now, 2013 and 2012 had roughly the same amount of figures, which was more than 2011. 2014 has significantly less, like half as much was released, because by this point, Akiba Ranger Season 2 was in and out. The ratings weren't great, and it seemed like people were tired of Akiba Ranger. The joke had only worked really for one season, and the second season started taking from parody to really mean-spirited jabs at the franchise. And so because of that, I think that Akiba Ranger's popularity fell off, and so did the Sentai Figuarts. Because 2014 saw, again, half as many releases as 2013. There's an unfortunate trend in all this. So, here we go. Hurricane Blue and Hurricane Yellow, P Bandai. Kyoryu Green and Kyoryu Blue, P Bandai. Mammoth Ranger, P Bandai. Kyoryu Gold, P Bandai. Kyoryu Black and Kyoryu Pink, P Bandai. Tricera Ranger, P Bandai. Tiger Ranger, P Bandai. Akka Ranger from Go Ranger, retail. And Vol Eagle from Sun Vulcan, retail. And then in 2015, there was a single release of a 2-pack of Vol Shark and Vol Panther, P Bandai. And that was it for Sentai Figuarts for 7 years until May of 2022. There were other releases for the Sentai Figuarts, and that was in the form of Power Rangers. Running these down, we had Shinken Red and Shinken Gold imported straight to Toys R Us. Pretty convenient, pretty surprising too. They just popped up one day, and it was like, oh hey, look at this is pretty cool. We also got to see an exclusive 5-pack of metallically painted Shinkengers for San Diego Comic-Con. And that was pretty neat because that was the first kind of quote-unquote exclusive to the US market. We got the Power Rangers, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. In fact, all of the Power Rangers were retail in North America, where they'd been mostly P Bandai in Japan. Dragon Ranger and Tyranno Ranger were brought over as Green Ranger and Red Ranger, missing the powerful Ranger parts that would match them to Akiba Ranger, but in different packaging for Power Rangers. And that would be the same for Terra Ranger, Mammoth Ranger, and Tricera Ranger. Tiger Ranger would be modified to be taken from a male body mold to a female body mold to sort of match the Season 2 and 3 look of the character for Power Rangers. There also was an Armored Black Ranger as a Comic-Con exclusive that never saw release in Japan, simply because, well, it wasn't in Super Sentai, it was exclusive to Power Rangers. So they cobbled together some parts and made it a nice US exclusive, which is actually kind of cool. So what happened to the Sentai Figuarts? Well, my personal opinion, I think part of the problem was that it did seem like making most of the non-red, non-6th Rangers P Bandai, including some 6th Rangers being P Bandai, people just weren't interested in collecting incomplete teams that were going to cost them a whole lot of money. Looking at you, Hasbro, you can see where this path is going. But the problem is that essentially there was too many incomplete teams, and if complete teams, you had to spend a bunch of extra money, and I don't think it was worth it for most fans in Japan collecting these, and especially fans outside of Japan. This left almost every team incomplete. We finished Shinkenger? Barely. Gokaiger was still missing things like Gold Mode, but it was still technically complete of the core 6. Gokaiger got a single Ranger. Sun Vulcan was finished only because I think there was 3 of them. They didn't even finish the first Sentai Go Ranger. There was prototypes for the other 4. Never happened. No Boken Silver, no Yellow and Pink. For Deca Ranger, they never made Deca Break, Deca Master, Deca Swan, Deca Gold, the SWAT modes. There was a bunch of stuff missing for a very popular Sentai. For Jetman, we never saw the rest of the team. Yellow, Blue, and White, nowhere to be seen, except in an Akiba Ranger skit. Way to tease us. And yeah, that was essentially the problem, is we had so many incomplete teams that yeah, it was kind of like, well, what was the point of collecting everybody? You'd pretty much just buy the reds. And that takes us to 2022, because we have seen the release of a new SH Figuart for Sentai, and that being in the form of Zenkaiger from機界戦隊 Zenkaiger. This, of course, was the 45th anniversary series, much like how Sentai Figuarts started in the 35th anniversary. And this is a completely new figure, and it's absolutely the best. It has the new modern articulation that they sort of knocked down with Ultraman because they got sort of joints looking a lot better and a lot cleaner, which may have also been a deterrent for people collecting Sentai Figuarts before. And this figure just overall looks fantastic and just looks overall like a stellar release. And I'm really happy to have him. Unfortunately, I don't know where this is going because the only other release that we have seen pre-orders for is Don Momotaro from Avataro Sentai Donbrothers, who would be the leader of the next team that followed Zenkaiger. Other than that, there was a reversioned Gokai Red prototype shown when Zenkaiger was revealed, presumably a Shinkocho Seiho, which is the higher premium tier of SH Figuarts, but we've not seen anybody that's not a red in this lineup, and Zenkaiger taking the red role because he's the team leader. Essentially, Sentai Figuarts may be back, but not necessarily in full force. I think they're testing the market with what sold before, the Reds. Maybe we'll see a 6th Ranger, maybe they'll throw out a Gokaiger. And unfortunately, the downside to this is I'm not sure exactly if we're going to get full teams. And the reason why is because, like I had mentioned sort of in my prologue, Kamen Rider only sees 2 or 3 figure releases at retail. The rest is P Bandai. We're up to 2 releases for retail this year. We haven't seen any P Bandai, but if we were going to get more of the Zenkaigers, more of the Donbrothers, or any of the past Sentai, they would be P Bandai. And then on top of that, I don't think they're going to go back and like make the other 3 Jetmen, because they'd have to redo the first 2, because the figure technology has just evolved so much since, to go from these kind of lankier anime-like bodies to these more suit-realistic bodies that they have done, again, with Kamen Rider and Ultraman. But that being said, it is kind of nice for there to be some premium Sentai releases, kind of making sure that the adult fandom knows that, hey, we're still making stuff for you. And putting Zenkaiger alongside Kamen Rider Revi and Ultraman Trigger to be like the 2021 Tokusatsu lineup is pretty cool, and I'm glad that Figuarts at least delivered on that front. So to answer my own question, what kind of things should we expect from SH Figuarts going forward for Sentai? Personally, I think they're not going to do anything besides Reds, and maybe 6th. I feel like Gokaiger's too much of a Gokaiger pull to like not do, but we'll see what happens. Again, that Gokai Red has not seen the light of day yet, and we already got Don Momotaro coming up, who wasn't part of the initial presentation. So we'll see how it goes. SH Figuarts can be kind of a weird beast these days, but we'll see what happens. There's really no way to predict Bandai nowadays, because they'll show stuff and then just never release it, and then you just feel pain. Or they'll never show stuff and you expect them to release it, and then you'll feel pain. So for those going into SH Figuarts going, oh, I can drop Lightning Collection, I don't need them anymore, we got Figuarts back, wouldn't go that far. In fact, I would just continue to pick up what they do put out, and hopefully they provide a nice lineup of figures. If they just continue forward of making whoever is the current Red, that'd be cool, I guess. It's just a matter of, you know, I like some of the older Sentai better and would like the older figures. Specifically, what I'm looking for is ones who aren't Lightning Collection, because the Zenkaiger, while he's a little short, does not look bad with Lightning Collection figures. So, you know, if you could go back and like redo Jetman, if you could go do Live Man, something like that, that'd be kind of neat. But for the most part, we'll see how these figures sell, because I think it's going to entirely decide Bandai's path. And that's pretty much all I got. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a bit of a quick history, but I hopefully touched on all the bases. If you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments. And yeah, hit the like button while you're down there. Subscribe to the notification bell for future videos on this channel. And stay tuned and check out other videos if you haven't. I like doing these little history bits. You might see more of these, because I really enjoy just kind of running down sort of a toy line's perspective to see what its future might be. So I hope you enjoyed it. On that note, check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for Sentai news and more, and my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.